With its champagne paint job and unreliable autofocus, the Fujifilm GA645Zi is the pinnacle of consumer camera technology at the turn of the century. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're curious about buying the Fujifilm GA645Zi, and I like to cut to the chase, and I will say yes, I think it is worth it. That being said, I paid $1,187 for this camera, I believe, on eBay in September of 2024, and things have only gotten worse since then, and that is a fuck ton of money to pay for a camera manufactured before the year of 2000. Now things are about $1,500 for this camera, and they seem to be getting worse. But in spite of this disgusting price tag and a handful of other problems, this is a camera that I'm always stoked to put in my bag, so let me tell you about it. When we're talking about the Fuji GA645Zi, which I'm just going to call the Fuji, it is impossible to understate how important the size/form factor is. When I was looking for a medium format camera, I was shopping between this and something like the Hasselblad 500cm, which in most ways is a superior camera. The Hasselblad 500 series is modular, it's fully mechanical, it's mechanically sound, and has some of the best lenses ever produced available to it. And while not even particularly large for medium format cameras, the Hasselblad is decidedly clunkier than the Fuji because of its sort of boxy shape. Conversely, the Fuji is really slender, and while I don't think it's the thinnest medium format camera out there, I think it's the thinnest that has a sort of modern technological implementation. There are cameras that have some sort of bellows system, but the Fuji automatically telescopes out when you turn it on, which is something I prefer. I don't know if this is actually any more reliable, but it feels a bit more seamless. And because this camera was released at the turn of the century, there's plenty of semi-modern technological implementations here. The Zi has a pseudo zoom lens, which allows you to choose between 35, 40, and 50mm focal lengths in 35mm equivalents. There's also auto exposure and autofocus, and I'll say the auto exposure does a much better job. This thing automatically reads film speed, but lets you adjust it so you can exposure compensate, and I'll say that all these features combine into kind of making this the de facto medium format point and shoot camera. Now before I go any further on lenses, I want to remind y'all I'm not a pixel peeper, but with that being said, I have been around optical excellence for kind of a long time. I shoot all of my personal work on either Sony G or GM lenses, and I've done tons of client work with the Sony Zeiss lenses that they make for the RED cameras. So I'm used to very sharp lenses, and with that being said, I think this lens is extremely sharp. I have no test to give you, but I can see it, and you probably can too. When you put fine-grained film in here and have enough light, the pictures are razor sharp. I keep coming back to a handful of photos because their definition is breathtaking. Now this might have more to do with the differences in film stocks rather than the camera, but this camera for me, in my experience, really highlighted the difference between stocks like Gold and Portra. When I'm shooting Gold on my 35mm camera versus Portra, it's not the biggest difference in the world, but to me, in medium format, it was night and day. Now what's extra interesting to me is that all the lenses I mentioned earlier were prime lenses that are beloved for their compactness, sharpness, and their affordability, whereas this is a pseudo zoom lens. So to have those kinds of results in a zoom lens from over 25 years ago is very impressive. The Fuji captures, well, it's in the name, 6x45 frames that are actually 56mm by 41mm, and this can either be a pro or con, depending on how you're feeling. To me, these images being over double the size of a 35mm negative, with the sharpness that the lens provides, and the fact that you get 16 shots in a 120 roll, this is all gravy to me. This is great. The downside here is that they are much smaller than anything else in the medium format market, like the 6x7s, and they are dwarfed by the 6x9s, but that is a trade-off that I'm happy to make. And now some nice-to-haves about this camera. First off, the flash. The flash does its job well. These photos of me and my friends at a shrine were taken in complete darkness, so the more I use this camera, the happier I am with the flash. It comes in clutch pretty often. Aesthetics. Maybe it's because I was born in 1999, but I love the champagne color on this thing. It just does something for me. There's self-timer and bulb exposure modes, which are essential for squad pics and long exposures. As far as the battery goes, it uses these little things. They're easy to find. They're at Home Depot. Works for me. Now, if size and form factor are the biggest pro of this camera, the biggest con is easily the autofocus. If left entirely to unchecked autofocus, this camera will miss focus very often. You will indicate at something 3 meters away, dead center, and it'll still half shutter press focus at infinity. I have missed far more shots than I care to admit on this camera, and just because of the point and shoot nature of it, you want to point and shoot, you want a one and done, but you really can't be doing that, especially if your photos are not focused at infinity. That being said, the distance meter on the side is accurate, so you're only a few extra half shutter presses away from probably dialing in where you want to be. Now lately I'm much more inclined to just guess with autofocus, and guess really is the right word here because there's no instrumentation of measurement besides the autofocus. All you have is a list of zones from I think 1.5 meters all the way to infinity. Now one concern with the Fuji is that it's a little bit of a time bomb. The Fuji displays a bunch of stuff on this rear LCD display. ISO, how many shots you've taken on the current roll and battery, as well as any settings you change. So when you're in manual mode, the only way you can tell what your aperture is by looking at the LCD screen or through the viewfinder. So a common problem with the Fuji is that the LCD screen goes out, and then you can't see any of the information that you need to properly use this camera. Now I feel a little bit unfair calling this a con of the camera because it is a bit nebulous and it hasn't actually happened to me. But it is kind of reminiscent of owning an Xbox 360 back in the day.
3 red lights.
Ah, the red rings of doom signal that your Xbox 360 is fried.
See, back in the 360 days, if you were there, you'll remember that there was the famous red ring of death. And I heard so many stories of people who knocked over their Xbox or even just went to go turn it on one day, their ring went red, and they lost everything. Xbox never was turned on again. So whatever the opposite peace of mind is, that's a little bit of what owning the Fuji is like. I'm always kind of worried in the back of my mind that one day the LCD is just not going to turn on, it's not going to work, and I'm going to be SOL on a $1,000 camera. One time last summer, I was actually freaking out for like 36 hours because it wasn't working, and I was looking up how to fix it, and there was just no film in it. So that's kind of what it does to you. But yeah, from what I've heard from other people, the back hinge is very fragile and liable to break at any time, so I guess be careful. Over time though, I've gained a lot more confidence in this camera, especially in contrast to what people say about it online, because I've had pretty much no issues. The only issue that I've had is that I took it on a motorcycle road trip a few months ago, and one little dash on the LCD was flickering in and out every other day or so. But I was also having it strapped to the back of my motorcycle in a backpack, just wrapped in a towel, as I'm going like 70 miles an hour for 1,200 miles, so I think it's doing pretty good. The last downside that I'll mention about this camera is the kind of clunky controls, and this is a little bit nitpicky. It honestly makes sense because it is a point-and-shoot camera, but I've just grown accustomed to having cameras that have dedicated controls for every setting. Hell, even my Canonet has a dedicated thing for shutter, aperture, and focus. The Fuji has 2 main dials and essentially a shift key. The first dial controls camera modes, your program, aperture, priority, manual, and ISO setting. If you pop this thing into manual mode, you can adjust your aperture with the control wheel, and hold this little shift key button to control your shutter speed. This is all clunky, but ultimately fine. The real problem here is switching focus. To switch out of autofocus, you have to hold this tiny button and then turn the dial, and I don't think I've ever been able to do this without pulling it down from my eye. And even worse is that there's no real way to tell if your subject is 2.5 meters or 3 meters away. You'll find out when you scan your negatives. It's weird because in terms of hardware, it's all there, but the interface and sort of data technology can muddle what would be some otherwise really stunning captures. Now obviously those are some serious downsides, but I still want to double down on my love for this camera. This is absolutely my favorite camera that I've used to date, and I really don't think there is anything else much like it. Personally, I don't see any other film camera with this size footprint, optical excellence, and flexibility. If you're willing to forego a traditional camera experience with dedicated dials and rangefinder focus, I think you'll find a lot of fun with this Fuji. And when you get back from whatever trip you take it on, you'll find incredible clarity in your negatives over the white table. Alright, postscript. I'm stealing this idea directly from a creator called Seal. I don't know how to pronounce it, but shout out to them. I'll link them here. Anyways, yeah, I've been gone off the internet, well, at least YouTube, for 2 years now. I kind of blew up my life, and I'm putting back together the pieces in a new mosaic. And I've been doing a lot of stuff that isn't shooting. I've been shooting a decent amount, but it hasn't been kind of the sole focus like it was previously. But I'm back here talking about cameras, and that's a good thing. And I think the gist of it is that for me, I found shooting and taking photos was really a sort of a gateway to get out and see the world. And I don't necessarily love shooting in my day-to-day life. I don't love getting out every day to go take photographs. It's something that I like to do as an excuse to travel and to see new places, so it's not exactly a part of my daily routine, and I don't want to try and force it to be that, but I still absolutely love doing it, and I've still been taking so many photos over the past couple of years. But my desire to travel is still damn near insatiable. I can't wait to get out and shoot somewhere this summer. But I guess the main focus isn't pictures anymore. If I get some, that's just gravy. Will I be making more videos on the channel? That remains to be seen, but I appreciate you being here and watching this one, so thank you so much. Cheers, have a great day. That's good enough.